It's now 6:15. We're going to call the committee meetings to order. We're going to start with donation of property with Planning and Zoning Committee with Mr. Hillier.
Thank you, Mr. President. Council, this is the first piece of legislation for tonight, Resolution 2023-87. This is the donation of property from the Wesley Klein Trust. Our engineer has told us why he thinks we should take the donation. I have 10 minutes tonight before we take it to the floor later on. Questions, comments, additions? Inability, I went up again yesterday to look at the property. Still in question why we want it. The guy that has the dozen or so pickup or vehicles parked on the street might want it. For additional parking for the vehicles he's working on, but other than that. Tammy?
I guess my biggest question is what financial, I'll use the word burden, are we taking on by taking the property?
So as it has been explained to us, the purpose of us assuming this property would be to make sure that it is actually not developed. Because the way that the engineering department sees it is it's essentially undevelopable. I think right now, if I don't know how many of you have actually visited the lot, there are two parcels. It's at the end of the cul-de-sac on Prospect. It's on a slope. There's dense vegetation. There's a natural spring that runs down through it. We've had to go onto, it's right off of the right-of-way there. And we've placed a French drain there to keep that runoff from going on to other property and damaging that property. The goal of us assuming this is, again, to keep more development taking place on that and making sure that those properties, those potential properties, don't end up in a situation that would be untenable.
As I recall also, Councilwoman, it was to protect those downstream for intentional or unintentional consequences of the stormwater runoff because of the development, the potential development that would go in there.
So the French drain, is that, I'm going to use a lot of words that probably are real restrictive. Is it the solution? Is it the fix for this? Or if something happens to those places now going forward, is that on the city?
So we placed the French drain there. It's already there. It's been there for X amount of years. I'm unsure.
I can't remember how long.
Yeah, but
He did it even when he owned these people?
yeah, even
Okay.
when he owned.
Okay.
So the maintenance of that would be on us. Even now, it's more of a protection, like the mayor said, for the properties that are downstream, if you will. So us assuming this property, I don't think that we take on any more liability than we already have assumed. So by taking it on, we are just making sure that any additional development doesn't harm the properties that are, again, downstream. It's truly undevelopable.
And I understand that. I've seen it. I'm just worried, someone else owns it now. If that spring floods somebody downstream or downhill, I'm assuming that's on that property owner. By us
Right.
taking this on, is it going to be on the city then in the future if something major happens?
That I cannot answer. I'm not sure.
I guess that's my only
We'll be
question.
required to maintain the French
Yeah.
drain.
Why?
And it will need to be, what?
It's on private property. We shouldn't even have done it.
I meant the catch basin. I meant the catch basin.
It's on city property.
Yeah,
Right. That
But the
we've
French
placed.
drain was dug on their property.
right.
French drains are basically temporary. They're a hole dug in the ground with gravel in it.
Yeah.
As long as the water doesn't come faster than it can take it, it'll let it seep through the bottom.
Do we have to mow these properties then? Or is it not something that is being
It's
not
mowed?
mowable.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No more than it currently is now. How about that?
Mr. Braun, I hear the word liability awful lot. It's not our property at this time. According to Mr. Ball, we went in and did a favor for him by putting in the French drain. At this point, if Mr. Klein keeps it, city's still liable?
I would not think so.
So, there you go.
Okay.
I'm concerned, and I don't have a huge grasp of the details here, but we've already got, as I stated at the last meeting, we've got situations where private property has imperfectly changed hands. The titles weren't done right, the deeds weren't done right, and now we have stormwater problems. And if this is a situation where at little expense, we can protect the citizens and the development from having stormwater problems, especially from a property that's already in a trust and, might end up in an abandoned situation, that might not, if we're not taking on significant burden and we can protect the rest of the development from stormwater, I think that might be a good idea, as Mr. Ball recommended.
I think I question the piece that you led with, that I don't feel like I have enough information about this. We had Brian talk about it a little bit. It seems very confusing as to why the city would want it.
It's awful quiet. We got 4 more minutes.
I would kind of like a list of pros and cons. What is the benefit to us having it, and what is the negative?
So, again,
I know benefit, we can
Right.
keep somebody from, okay, negative-wise, what is it going to cost us to have it then?
excuse me. I would assume, and Mr. Bourne maybe can explain a little bit further on this. I mean, we assume some liability as we take on this piece of property, but I imagine it's negligible. Have you seen the property?
Drove by, I didn't get out.
There's not going to be a lot of activity taking place on this property. The only situation that would occur would be maybe a significant overflow from the spring. But like I said, that's kind of the purpose for us assuming the property in the first place, is to make sure that through that significant overflow, we have control of the property and we can maintain the stormwater overflow. That way it doesn't damage the properties downstream. If it's left up to a private property owner, then it's kind of their prerogative / it's their full liability.
So this would benefit the citizens around there for us to
Correct.
own it?
Yes,
Downhill.
downhill, yeah.
Oh, water doesn't go
Yeah,
back?
correct. As we have been instructed multiple times, it flows down.
So why now? Like why is this come up now?
I think, given Mr. Klein's health situation, he thinks now would be the time for a community preservation situation, is my understanding. That has not been addressed to me directly by Mr. Klein, but that's the conversations that I've had.
We're talking about protecting people downstream at our expense. And what's the purpose of city council? Is it to
Sure.
protect people and we're assuming a liability, we're assuming an expense, but we're also protecting people. So that's the decision you have to make.
Getting back to the liability question, governmental liability is under Chapter 2744, which is political subdivision tort liability. There are 2 types of liabilities. There are sort of government, there are proprietary functions, and then there are other things that governments do. Proprietary includes public improvements, including sewer systems and things of that nature, which this would fall under the upkeep of the drainage from this. And under 2702, the A1, the city has no governmental property has not liable in damages for civil action for injury, death, or loss of person for proprietary functions, unless negligent operation of motor vehicle, which this wouldn't be. So there is very likely to be very little liability that we would pick up for acquiring this property.
So,
You're saying we're indemnified?
No, there's an absolute shield.
So if somebody gets on the property and starts messing around and falls and breaks an arm, we are shielded from that.
But if our French drain or other things we do to the property may not work and we flood out a house down below, we have liability.
No, I think it says that I don't believe that, because that's the operation of a sewer as a governmental proprietary function. And I don't think that'd be correct, unless we specifically did something to cause it to fail.
But wouldn't you have no trespassing signs on it?
Well, that's correct. People sue you even if you have absolute shields to liability. That's why you have it. We can't stop the suit, but we can defeat it quickly.
Mr. Hawkins, about time.
Just one more question though. So the advantage would be to help protect the citizens below the French drain, essentially. Is that what I'm? There's really no. It's not really gonna. It's not gonna cost us anything, but we could
It'll
help
cost you
protect our citizens.
It'll cost you the manpower and equipment to upkeep it over the years. There is a cost.
So if the French drain is working and the spring is not shooting out a lot of water, that French drain is probably going to be sufficient. I mean, I've never seen a spring that's shooting out gallons of water per minute.
I think that's kind of the cloudy part that some of us are concerned about, and
Yeah.
what you can't see down the road.
And we have to vote on this tonight, right?
Yes, we do.
Well,
Thank
if you wish to gather additional information, you can postpone it. You have 2 other meetings still in this calendar year. You could postpone it too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We're going to adjourn the planning and zoning. Going to move down to Mr. Seabolt with finance and budget to discuss the rate distribution of the tax codified ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to turn this over, did you want to speak first? Anything about it?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to turn it over to Amber. She has some information for us, and let her proceed with it.
Thank you, Janice. So I have sent out 2 items to council. They were on your desks at the last meeting, and they really talk a little bit about how the portion of the money that in the past has gone to Ariel Foundation Park has been distributed. Sorry, in past years. The version that we have has been amended, and the park has not received the same 5% that they have in years past. And so I'd just like to have a conversation about how that will affect the park. And Mike Miller, who sits on the Conservancy Board, is going to talk to us a little bit about his perspective on it, and then I'd like Terry to talk as well. This is a recommendation from
Greater Downtown Management Council.
It's a council. Okay, I couldn't remember if it was a council or a committee. So the council makes this recommendation to us, and then we are able to change it if we decide that that is what we should do. So, Mike, if you'd start.
All right, thanks, council, for allowing me the time to address this issue. How much time is there, Mr. Councilman, Mike Hillier?
On my committee.
You're not your committee, sorry.
4
Miss
minutes.
Janet, how many?
4 minutes.
All right, I'll set my timer. 4 minutes. Start. I'll hand these to you. This is some additional information. Okay, as I said, thanks for allowing me the time to come and talk to you. Sorry if I talk a little bit quickly, but I'll try and get through as timely as I can. But in the past, the Area Foundation Park Conservancy Board has been able to receive these funds to assist it in marketing Foundation Park to both the local community and the greater state of Ohio and adjacent states. So what I've provided you with is information, which is the data from what we track from the online services and our advertising to help you to make a decision whether or not to keep it as is or back to how it was. So some high points. We have about 1,300 individuals on our newsletter. I checked today, we have 15,000 followers that follow us on the Facebook page. Some website statistics, 29,852 visitors to the park website are from within the United States, And you can see others from around the world also pay attention to Mount Vernon, to the Foundation Park, because of the type of park that it is. States with visitor counts of 800 or more: Ohio, Virginia, and Georgia. And there's some additional states there that are listed also. Top cities where we have web traffic is Mount Vernon, a little over 3,500. Columbus and Cincinnati are the top 3 for visitation to the park website. We have, so far, over the past year, we've got 30,000 new visitors to the website with 5,300 returning website users. So that shows that the marketing that we have been doing as a park board is working with attracting new visitors to the park. To focus on the 4th of July celebration, we had, which is the biggest overall event that happens at the park, we had over 89,000 people view our website, 29,000 of those being to the Foundation Park's homepage. The next most visited with 11,000 visits is the 4th of July page. And that all happened between June 6th and July 6th. And that is for mostly people trying to find out information about the event, is why those folks are contacting us. Last year we had 35,000, a little over 35,000 visitors total. And this year we're looking forward to some additional programming. So we're looking at having 3 to 4 additional concerts at the park this year. And we'll be advertising those both locally and for out-of-county users also. And we're hoping to announce those events sometime over the next month, month and a half. We've been working with MVAC and other community partners to have those be successful, and things just aren't ironed out yet for that to be announced. So the lodging tax provides the city of Mount Vernon an opportunity to partner with Foundation Park Conservancy and reinvest that for a lot of people to be able to find out about Mount Vernon and the Conservancy, and most of all, the Foundation Park, which draws a lot of people from all over the state. So I say I have 7 seconds left. I would be happy to answer any questions, but I would just ask if you get the time, if you would read through that a little bit more detail before you'd make any final decisions on the matter. But I appreciate you letting me come talk.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Miller before we let him go?
What do you think, if we don't give you this 5%, how do you think it's going to affect you?
We'll probably cut some of the marketing, some of the funds. We're in the process of doing the park budget right now. So it'll be finalized by January 1st. So we have a board meeting, I think, November 30th of this week. And then the budget will be presented then officially. And then we'll either vote on it then, and then we have a special meeting in, I think it's December 8th or 13th. We have another special meeting then.
How is your budget?
It's financially sound, yes. Our budget is financially sound. As far as, you know, I think we stand to lose $5,000 or $8,000 if we don't get that bed tax money. And so that would be something that we would have to discuss. Where would we where could we make up that additional funding? You know, like right now, as an example, we just hired a new park manager for the park, and that person will be announced here soon. We're waiting for the background investigation to be finished to make sure that, you know, they can legally be hired by us.
Okay. Mike?
You weren't the presenter to the GDMC, right?
No, I was not the presenter.
Do you know what the reason was they give you for not funding it?
No. Actually, I talked to several other board members, and we had no conversation with them about the submittal. Our treasurer, I believe, Josh, submitted that. I mean, actually, I think I brought that with me. What he
I think
had
it was actually a
submitted.
presenter, wasn't there, Terry?
That,
Josh Mullet is our treasurer, and I
that
know
was
this was sent
the-
in.
Yeah.
yeah. what was it?
When you come up, you can probably give us the reason why they weren't given that, right?
Yeah.
You were part of that? Thank you.
Can we give 4 more minutes so that Terry Scott can talk?
Give as long as you want.
Yeah, it's the committee
We have
meeting.
till
Oh,
6:45.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Do we have more questions for?
Any other questions? Okay. Well, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mike. Terry?
Thank you, council members. The Greater Downtown Management Council, which was created more so when we created the lodging excise tax in 2006. That was the beginnings of our tax distributions. The members of the council are the mayor, myself as the community representative. The Visitors Bureau, Main Street, Mount Vernon is also a member of the Greater Downtown Management Council, as well as the Mount Vernon Parking Company, and a community representative from small businesses and from large businesses. And then both of our higher education sit on this board as well. Now, for the distribution portion, as you will learn, and you've already had in your legislation, some of these folks that I just mentioned are also requesting funds. So therefore, they will not eligible to sit in on the panel to listen to all of the presentations. So therefore, with that, that left us with the remaining members of the Greater Downtown Management Council. So the decision, which wasn't a unanimous decision amongst the entire panel, let's talk about. So those folks who worked with the panel, we had Dr. John Berry. We had, let's see here, I'm going to be the next guy here. We had a representative from Mount Vernon Nazarene University was there as well. Carol Grubal, who happens to be the chairperson of the committee. Corey Kidwell, he represents the small businesses. Bob Boss, who is president of the Park National Bank, is the large business. And Alan Schaefer, representing Mount Vernon Nazarene University, and the mayor and myself. So we were the panelists at which everybody presented in front of. So with that information and of course, 85%, this is another thing, of the 100%, only 85% can be divvied up amongst these individuals that are requesting for their, vying for those funds. 5% of it by council has been set aside for administrative and operational costs to facilitate the lodging tax process. The other 10% has been set aside for what we call an available petition fund. And we have had a number. Mrs. Keener has worked with me on a number of events, returning events actually, for bringing people coming into town with Miss Wheelchair Ohio, right? And then Pennsylvania, as I recall, too. Yeah. And we have had others who have had requests for financial resources as well. It was the committee's decision that we would ask and request that the foundation, Conservancy, please come to us and petition for funding, because the available petition fund is available to get the resources. They wouldn't be out any money at all. They're approximately $7,000 is about what that's going to generate for them this year. Maybe just a little over that, but not much. So if they came and asked for $7,000 or $8,000, we would make it whole for them. There would be no problem whatsoever. So there's the backup to changing the formula as you see in your legislation and still having a vehicle. We have about $80,000 in the available petition fund. So we have resources that we can certainly support them with. Not only would they not have to wait every month to get their check, they could get it in one check.
So you're saying that if Ariel Park Conservancy came and asked for the full amount that they were expecting to receive from this, they could just have the full amount?
Yeah.
But that's not guaranteed.
Sure.
But it's not guaranteed, because I have used this process before, and when it's requested, you can request an amount, and that determination is made separately of how much those individuals will actually receive.
Yes, because the mayor and I are the two who sit on the advisory council on the available petition fund.
Yes.
And so we have yet to ever not fulfill a request.
So,
Oh, sorry.
so Terry, the 10% that goes in this available petition fund
Sure.
isn't necessarily always given out, and it accrues.
It accrues.
Okay.
Keep those every month. Yeah.
So, my question, I guess, I'm confused. So did the Woodward need the 5%? Is that why we shifted it over there? Is that, and then,
Based upon the panel's request of listening to what the Woodward Development Opera House was requesting, the panel, as everybody, determined that that was a good use of the resources, and that we also did have a backup plan.
Did you talk to the individuals who pay into this bed tax? I talked to some individuals with hotels, Airbnbs who all pay into this, who would like to see a more even distribution of the funding that they pay into. So do you take into account those who pay into bed tax?
No. And there would be no justification for that because it's a part of operational costs of running either their Airbnb facilities and/or the hotel and lodging is all part of.
A tax on people. You're saying that a tax on people, they shouldn't have any opinion as to how their tax money is used?
They're not the ones paying.
Well, certainly we have people that can have a voice in regards to that. The fact is that if you follow the purpose of what the lodging tax provides, that is a recharge back out to the community to help bring more entertainment, activities, and others to our community.
Which is why I think it makes sense to give that 5% back to the foundation, given what they are doing with it is marketing. So that's just what they had requested it for specifically.
Yes, they had a great presentation. They presented well. The treasurer did a very good job on the presentation.
Woodward doesn't have this option to go for the money?
It's not, let's put it this way, for those who are receiving a distribution is not something that we have normally or have we ever done into a supplement to an already beneficiary.
so reading between the lines, by making Ariel zero, they can get the money. Not giving the 5% to the Woodward, they couldn't get the money.
That's right.
And I'm hearing, Terry, that you don't know any reason why you and the mayor or anyone else would turn down this 5% have asked for.
Have never requested, we've never had a request that we did not fulfill.
And I'm gonna base my trust in you over the last 16 years, that if they apply for that through the other fund, they're gonna get it.
Would.
I have a hard time voting against this.
And it currently sounds like there's enough there for them to continue to ask for this for several years.
Good, yes.
Okay.
Well, just like, even if everybody's gotta ask for it, is it every 2 years or every year?
Every two.
Every two. Anyways, regardless if it comes out of that pot, I've sat on both sides of that. I've represented the Heritage Center and the parking company. And
Yeah.
so you gotta reapply for it anyways. So what they'd be applying for out of the extra pot, is that good for 2 years as well? Or one?
They could do it, they'd come back in the next year and recycle it again. And if they had a need, I realize every organization that presented in front of the panel has a need, okay, or they wouldn't have been there. And we appreciate their time and their efforts. These people put a lot of time and efforts into their material that they provided to us. I applaud them for all the work that they have done to make a presentation. That takes a lot of work and a lot of effort.
And I would say they probably won't have to do any more work on what they've already done.
Right? Because we already know them. We know them very well.
Anybody else have a question?
Thank you, council. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jerry. Amber, do you have anything else? Okay, then, I close this.
Now, 6:45, we're going to adjourn the finance and budget. We'll move now to planning and zoning, Mr. Hillier, for public hearing on 0 Hillcrest Road. We have 1 minute before we start. Or less than a minute.
Please stay and be quiet, Mr. Hillier.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
What was that?
Now you can talk.
I can go.
It's now 6:45.
Thank you. Council, this pertains to ordinance 2023-42 in your packet. Excuse me, this is up for third reading tonight. It is a public hearing. Before I forget, thank you for those who attended. The purpose of this public hearing is the Municipal Planning Commission on October 12th voted unanimously to approve the zoning change for the parcel number 71-00050.000 from R1 Single Family District to PND Planned Neighborhood District. This is on Upper Gilcrest Road, right behind the Rockford Homes property that they're working on right now. We have 30 minutes. The way I'd like to do this meeting is Mr. Patrick Mackey from Lemon Development's here again for us. Thank you very much. He'll give us some input like he did the last meeting, and we'll go forward from there. Todd does have a piece to add for public correspondence, and then we'll ask for comments from the public. We asked for at least for 4-minute comments. If we have time, we can add on to it. Then I'll ask Mr. Mackey to address those comments. And council, if we have time at that point, we can ask questions or comments. And then if we don't have it done by the end of the 30 minutes, we can continue as when I bring it to the floor. Good? And I will be asking to amend the ordinance to remove the emergency clause. All right, Mr. Mackey. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Good evening, council. Good to see you all again. I don't have much to add from our last conversation 2 weeks ago, but just to reiterate, my name is Patrick Mackey. I'm with Lemon Development. As Councilman Hillier was just describing, we have the parcel of land adjacent to the Rockford Homes project under contract right now, so 33.89 acres. And we are seeking to approve to designate that 33.89 acres on Upper Gilcrest as a planned neighborhood district. The current zoning is a mix of R1 single family and PND. Our proposed community would be a 55+ age targeted and include duplex villas, 4 and 8 unit single story apartments, and a community clubhouse. Aside from the 8 unit apartments, all units would have attached garages. Our concept plan currently shows a total unit count of 156 units. However, these are concepts and have not been finalized yet. The market conditions are going to influence our final design. The estimated rents will be approximately $1.75 per square foot, and the units will range from an approximately 700 square foot, one bedroom apartment to a 1,300 square foot, 2-bedroom villa with an attached garage. Our estimated development costs will be between $30 to $32 million. Brookwood Management, our affiliated company, would serve as the property manager for the community, and community amenities would include a clubhouse, as I said, and the concept that we presented previously depicts a pool. However, we have yet to finalize this. As we proceed in the design phase, we will consider a range of amenities and services to enhance the quality of life for our residents. So, I mean, I'd be happy to understand Councilman Hillier's schedule, so.
1 story high, correct?
Yep, slab on grade.
On-site management,
Yes, sir.
1 entrance, exit onto Upper Gilcrest Road is the only access you have, correct?
Correct.
And an approximation from you, from Rockford Homes to the back end of your property, whereabouts does that come out? You remember?
From their back end of their property to ours?
From where yours starts on the, I get my directions messed up, one end to the other, whereabouts does it come out on Gilcrest, do you remember?
Well, it's on Upper Gilcrest. It's closer to their entrance.
Rockford Homes?
Yeah.
All right. If you want to just sit up front there, I'll play
Sure.
and come back up.
All right.
Podium's yours. Mr. McAvoy, want to speak?
Questions?
Come to the podium, please. You come up here.
You gotta go to the podium.
Neil, if you give your name and address, just go to the podium right there, so you're on recorder.
Neil McAvoy, 12092 Upper Gilcrest Road. Okay, my question is, seeing how this development is butting up to my home and yard in my 19 acres, is there any plans for a buffer zone of any kind to help mask both of us?
I'll have Mr. Mackey address that. We did talk about it at the last meeting. And I did ask for that to be added to their plans. I'll have him address that when he comes back up.
Can you point to us on that screen where your property is, sir?
Pardon?
See the screen behind you? Can you point to where your property is, please?
All three of these.
Those three. Thank you.
1, 2, 3. Like 19 acres.
If you go out Gilcrest Road to the backside, his house is right there.
Okay.
And if I don't mind asking her a question, is the city planning on doing something for the fire department and squads for out that way? Because it's gonna be 55 and older, and squads probably answer more to 55 and older people than they do just younger apartments or housing.
Whoever,
Yes.
Mayor, would you care to
I think it
elaborate?
makes more sense at 55 and older, you need more squads.
It's currently in the process, and we hope to
Well, they
announce it.
said that 2 to
It's,
3 years ago.
we hope to announce it by the end of the year.
Mr. Beck, we'll read your letter. You want to come to the podium for anything? It's yours if you want. It's a public hearing.
Are you allowed to ask a
Sure.
question?
You got it.
Robert Beck, I live on Woodside Drive in Mount Vernon. There's been write-ups in the paper about subsidizing low welfare apartments. The state is coming up with lots of money. And so when, all this is contingent and the plans can change, what would drive a change to your current plans? Because right now, you say 55 and older, it might have a pool, it might be single story. What are your driving factors that would change the whole look and outlook of what's going on in this property?
I'll
Thank
have him
you.
address it. Thank you. Yes, sir, go ahead.
My name is Ron Sheets. I'm right across the street from Neil there on Upper Gilchrist. I'm concerned about all this development anyway, but we thought we were in the country. And what are we going to do, first of all, about this street? You can't even get out of there now half the time, and the houses aren't even built. Upper Gilchrist Estates. I mean, there's one lane out of there, and half the people don't even know you can turn right on red light when it's clear on that intersection. And they're going to be backed up, and then when the school gets out, plus traffic to the markets, it's going to be an impossible situation if we don't get that intersection changed.
What I'll do is, I've been told in other meetings that the traffic is up to the city, not the developer. Mayor, I'm going to throw it your way, the TIF district, what the plans are. Can you maybe fill him in a little bit there?
Certainly. Thank you for the question. It is something that we have been thinking an awful lot about, as the traffic everyone wants to know. And so we are planning to widen Upper Gilchrist Road so that the 3 lanes match the southern part of that. We also plan to put in sidewalks, a sidewalk on one side and a multi-use path on the other. But there will be a very large staging area for anyone who's heading south on Upper Gilchrist Road to turn left. And so again, that's going to be some of the immediate changes to that. I believe that's under design, is that not? That project is currently being designed through our engineering department, and that will be paid for by the use of the TIF district, the tax incremental finance, TIF number 1, Coshocton Avenue, to pay for that. So it will not be any additional strain on taxpayers. It's identified, it's restricted for specifically those uses.
So there'll be at least 3 lanes going into
Yes.
that?
There won't be 3 lanes going clear back though, correct?
Well, again, that's under design. I have I don't know what it looks like yet. They will be probably basing that on the calculations, the development back. Yeah.
Are we going to have to wait until this development's done before anything's done with that intersection?
Well, we hope not.
We hope not.
We hope not.
We're
It's
gonna-
under design work right now.
We're
I mean,
gonna
I
wind
can't.
up going out to Highway 3 it is to get to town if something isn't done.
I'm not the designer, so once, and I don't know how far along they are on that. I know we would like that the Rockford development is driving a lot of that because that's going to be important for them as well.
But is it fair to ask that while this development is going forward, you've allowed this to happen, you've okayed it, should on the city and the traffic getting this done so it'll accommodate this new rush of people?
Well, I think that's a fair assumption, and we'll have more people paying into the tax revenue stream to help pay for that too.
Yeah, I just hope we don't have to wade through this while it's happening when all these people are there. We'd like to have a little bit more assurance of that, the people would. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terry, the money's there now, isn't it, the TIF money? So the money is there for the TIF, to do the project, so it's not moving as fast as I want to either as far as traffic. But to relieve you a little bit, we do have the money. It's not something we're gonna tell you we're waiting on the money. The TIF district, the tax dollars came from Coshocton Avenue. And the way that works is the money stays on Coshocton Avenue projects. And my understanding, Mr. Ball already looked into the fact how far back Gilcrest Road we could use these TIF district dollars on. So that part's been approved, the money's been approved.
Corporate line.
I'm sorry?
Corporate line.
Goes clear to the corporate lines. And I've been talking to, I believe on Gilcrest Road, it runs clear back to Slayball's property, where they're doing. So, and one worry is not the money, the money's there. Podium?
Yes, hi, Marcia Kelso, 12848 Upper Gilcrest Road.
You're just a little further down the road, correct?
Right.
I was at your house, I'm trying to remember where it was.
Yeah, yep, just on down the house from these guys. They just said about the tax money, number one, I mean, how are people in an apartment? They're not gonna be paying property tax,
Income
correct?
tax.
You're gonna get a little income tax from them?
We're going to get a fair amount of income tax, but yes.
Well, don't they pay, the owner of the property pays property tax?
Yep.
I mean, I have a rental property, I pay the same property tax for that area on that rental property as I do my house. So there'll still be property tax received. The TIF tax is a total, and maybe Terry, when she's done, I'll have you explain a little bit more about the TIF money. But they will pay, the property owners will pay property tax.
Okay. The traffic is the big thing, and you're saying that it comes down to Slayball, the start of Slayball property, but yet this other place is gonna come in down by the pond that they've already got in there then? Is that where the other drive for this new P&D place is gonna go?
It's on the screen there, man.
Is the drive in it though?
The
I don't see the drive.
No. So, I mean,
Do you have the drawing with you?
Let me try to find it here.
we're just saying that, you know, this is kind of already a done deal, that we're gonna change it from just a few people to a lot of people, and they're saying 55 and older. How long is that gonna stay 55 and older?
I'll have him address that when he comes
And
up.
where
It's
are
a good
these
question.
55 and older people gonna come from?
That's a good
I mean, if
question.
we're coming from Intel, that everybody keeps saying, you know, that's why we're building all this stuff is because of Intel. Are 55 and older people gonna be working at Intel? I mean, is that the kind of people that they're gonna be drawing? And again, like they said about our fire and the traffic, that's all concerns on that road. And how do we get people there to help that? I mean, we've already got sleigh ball stuff going in, which is gonna be up high. And now these guys are saying this is just gonna be a one level, kind of like a condo situation type thing, supposedly. And it's just a lot to be putting on the city, whether it's school-age kids or the fire. Have we all really thought of this? I mean, you know, living out there and having it there. I mean, we already, like I said, the sleigh ball stuff is going in, and I mean, does the city know, like, how long is that gonna stay 55 and older? Does it have to stay, I can say I'm gonna, you know, keep it 55 and older, but do they have to keep it that way, or does the city?
I will have Mr. Mackey address that, how they plan on zeroing in on the 55 and over population. I've asked the same questions, a little confused myself on it. But I've got it here in my notes. That's one thing I'll have him address when he comes back up.
Okay.
And Mr. Hillier, if you'll confirm that, because I believed I asked that last time, if it's restricted to 55 and older, and the answer was no, they're building it to attract
Yes, and that's
55 and older.
one of the questions. I'll have him verify again how he plans on doing that. Is there anybody else from the public? Mr. Carter, did you want to come to the podium, sir, in front of you?
Thank you, Council. Don Carr, 4 Upland Terrace. Thank goodness you guys are here. You represent the community, the residents in the city. A recommendation came to you through the Planning Commission, a commission that has only one person that the public is able to vote for. So thank God you're here as the stopgap for things that are coming out of that commission. Ohio State just went through a football game with Michigan with the M read it out. I'm going to tell you that I worked for a number of years on the road in architectural sales, working with architects that were designing schools. The amazing thing that I saw in Michigan, which I wish Ohio could copy, is that they built the roads first. There was a vision ahead that said a school's going to go here, development's going to go here. The roads were built before any dirt was moved, and that was pretty impressive. You already know, and I don't have to give you the actual, well, I'll give you the developments that are already on the books or being dreamed about. Rockford, Liberty Crossing on Newark, Eastern Star, the old middle school, the Danbury Senior Housing, and the annexation that just happened with 105 acres on Martinsburg Road. I think if you dug deep and you asked your neighbors and your constituents, if asked, would you rather have apartments, high-density dwellings in Mount Vernon, or would you like to have single-family homes? The master plan put the Upper Gilchrist property as an R1 for a reason, for the right reason. We need single-family homes. Matter of fact, those that I just mentioned to you total 1,114 rental units that are coming our way. If Martinsburg Road develops with 105 acres, that could be another 342 rental units, bringing us up to 1,456. I think you'll hear it from many others. If we wanted to live in an urban area with apartments going up everywhere, we'd go to Columbus, we'd go to Grandview Heights. We're here in Mount Vernon, and we need single-family homes. I want to give you an example. 33.89 acres is what we're talking about up at Upper Gilchrist. I'm going to put it in a perspective that we can all visualize. That is a longitude and a latitude development sitting on that property. It is also a 2.6 Dixie drives that could go on that property. And these are all single-family homes, as you can imagine. The combination, and you know where Vernon View Drive is, behind Buffalo Wings, the streets of Upland Terrace, Dogwood, Eastmore, and then jump across the street to Plaza, all the way down Plaza to where the duplexes start, the apartments start. That represents I'm trying to come up with a number, it's less than 33 acres. 4 streets of single-family homes will fit on the property that is being asked to put in more multi-family homes. The total of Upland all the way down to Plaza is 116 homes that could go on the property that you're looking at tonight to rezone from an R1. Longitude has 44 homes. Nicer homes. I'm not suggesting that the property up on Upper Gilchrist should have the same size lots, but our code allows for a fairly generous size lot, which we could maximize the number of single-family homes. The number was brought up as to what the rent is going to be on that proposed property. The rent for I'm trying to see what property it was.
While you're looking, can you wrap yours up here a little
Sure.
bit? So I want to get back to Mr. Mackey.
2,275. Is that right? $2,275 a month for a 2-bedroom villa. A 1-bedroom apartment, $1,225,000. Now compare that. All you have to do is go online, and you'll find that the villa at $2,275 a month would be a mortgage on a $310,000 house. I mean, why are we asking residents to spend that kind of money on a rental that they'll never own, where they could go and get a mortgage for the same amount of money that they would be paying monthly? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Godke, I'll give you 2 minutes at the podium to answer that question. I've heard you answer that question.
What's the question?
About the rental. Why rent and not...
Don, are these your glasses?
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Why rent and not build? And I do have to get to Mr. Mackey.
Oh.
What's the push on all these rental
People want to
properties?
rent. I mean, we can't tell them what type of house that they should have or not, right? Like, if people want to rent a house, there should be a quality, affordable place to rent in the city. What we've seen is the population of the 55-plus age group since 2016 in Knox County grow by 12%. These people aren't coming from outside of Knox County. They're already here, and they need a place to live. Oftentimes, they're in the large single-family homes that are more affordable, that other people could buy, could move into if they were available on the market. So this type of product, and keep in mind, you've basically already approved this at Eastern Star, right? Lemon is basically doing the same thing that Michelle did at Eastern Star by creating an independent living version of her operation. And they're doing a similar thing. So it's, I mean, and then, then the last part is, if you want to talk about the market, we're in a rental building market, right? Construction costs, mortgage rates, it's cheaper. It's more affordable for developers to build rental units than it is for single family units. I don't disagree that we don't need more single family units. You'll never hear me say that. But we've got the opportunity to bring quality, affordable rentals to the city. And I
And just to
think we should take
clarify,
it.
Liberty Crossing has single-family homes in that development as well.
Correct. It's about I forget
About
the
a quarter.
percentage. Yeah, something like that.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Mr. Mack, is there anybody else from the public that wants to speak? Yes, sir. And I can have Mr. Mackey come back when it's on the floor. Name and address, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
My name is Gary Kester. I live at 24 Eastgate Drive in Mount Vernon. I didn't know what Don was going to speak to tonight, but he took about 60% of my presentation, so I'll be a little more brief. He did outline all the many developments that are going on in this city right now. A lot of transition going on, and I would like to speak against approval of this request for zoning change. Like Don, I don't think we want to become and develop a culture and a environment that's what we see down in Columbus, developing very rapidly. It would ruin the character and the heritage of Mount Vernon. And many of us live here because we don't want to live in that type of environment. I understand the economics and the issues there, but I think it's important that we preserve the history and the culture that we have here and the architecture that we have here. But more to the point I'd like to make is that I'm not sure, and I think we should make a real effort to make sure that the city is prepared to manage this transition. There's going to be a lot of infrastructure changes. There's going to be a lot of traffic problems. There's going to be school problems. There's going to be medical services. If anybody's been up to KCH lately, I think we need some help up there. So are we prepared to take on all these new residents and manage their medical needs, their school needs, the traffic needs, and how are we going to pay for that? And I'd like to recommend that we suspend any further consideration of rezoning until the city and government puts together a plan that shows us that they can have a plan to effectively go forward with all these different projects that are coming down the road. There's 1,400 units coming in possibly. You know, you're talking about 3,000 or 4,000 people. That's a significant part of a city that's only 17,000 people. So I would like to recommend that this request for this amendment or this rezoning be suspended until we have a better handle on how we're going to manage this situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. President, I'd like to take this 5 minutes longer, get Mr. Mackey to the podium while these people are still sitting here.
Any issues with that?
You're not going anywhere. Mr. Mackey. Okay, 7 minutes, and then we'll
Well,
end
first,
this.
one
and then
more gentleman just walked in. I don't know if he was here to speak. If you want to give him the opportunity.
Did somebody else want to speak?
No?
We're good?
Okay.
Buffer zone.
All right. So first, Mr. McAvoy, I believe was
Yes.
was asking about a buffer. Yeah, absolutely. We'd be open to discussing that, working with you. I'll give you my contact information when we leave here. As I said, right now our plans are just conceptual. Didn't want to put anything ahead of the rezoning. Obviously, there's a process. If we are fortunate enough to be granted the zoning amendment, there's a process that we have to go through for the comprehensive plan approval. And as we're developing that plan, I'd be more than happy to keep you in the loop and discuss buffer zone and what we could do to make that more beneficial to both parties. Mr. Beck asked about subsidized housing. This is market rate apartments. We do not do any low-income housing tax credit management. As I said, $1.75 per square foot is around the market condition, so we have no intention of doing any subsidized housing here. You also asked what would change the look of the apartment community. As I said, once we're going through that process, right? Hopefully we start that process starting tomorrow if we're fortunate enough to receive the zoning amendment. Once I think the objective with the P&D is once we come back with a comprehensive plan, what council and what the planning commission approves is what we have to build. So it's not one of those things in which we receive the zoning amendment and then now we're going to go do whatever we need to do. The plan that we come for the next step is the plan that will be developed. So, and that will be obviously have a public forum as part of that process as well. So that's, nothing will change from once what's approved via the plan. I believe.
Traffic, and that was, I addressed that.
Yeah.
The best we could, 55 and over.
So Ms. Kelso, I hear you about the apartment residents, traffic concerns. How long will it be 55 and older? First answer to that, a little bit of experience with Lemon Development. Someone brought up earlier the Danbury Senior Living community. We actually developed that community. Since 1997, we've developed 23 senior living communities and over 2,300 senior living units. This is what we have experience doing throughout Northeast and Central Ohio. So one, we have experience with senior living. It is age targeted, so it's not age restricted. So it's not something in which you have to be 55 and older to live there. The difference, why we use that vernacular, is it's designed, the community is going to be designed to design and market towards a specific demographic. You know, Rockford Homes has been pretty clear that they're going towards the younger working millennial. Our community is created with the needs, preferences, and lifestyle of the particular age group that we're targeting. So the younger senior that does not require a level of care but wants to be in a community that is designed with their needs and preferences in mind, such as lifestyle amenities, maintenance-free living, some social opportunities, the safety and security of being in a community. They may be looking to downsize. They may be looking for more age-appropriate housing to maybe get rid of their larger single-family home that they currently own. I believe the other questions were.
They look like condos?
Pardon me?
Look like condos?
There'll be some. There'll be obviously the villas. There'll be 4-unit apartments and 8-unit apartments. We're not going for the Army barracks look. You know, they will have some changes to the design, which again, you guys will all see before you approve anything. Where are these people coming from was the question. I believe Mr. Gaki answered that a little bit. But the U.S. Census Bureau indicates from 2010 to 2021, the 65-plus population increased 24% in Knox County. Again, they are here. I mean, obviously, I know in previous meetings you have referenced the Area Development Foundation Kenyon College study, so you're aware that the forecasted housing need estimate is that there needs to be 2,800 to 5,190 new residential units over the next 10 years. That was created before the Intel announcement. Since the Intel announcement, the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission's population growth indicates that Central Ohio's region is on track to reach nearly 3.51 million residents by 2050. That's a growth of 726,000 people. The demand for the housing will spread throughout the region. And then the BIA of Central Ohio's housing need assessment indicates that the average yearly housing need from 2022 to 2032 is 256 to 312 each year in Mount Vernon. So again, there is need. As far as there were some hints at density, the R1 density for single family is 4 units per acre. What we're looking at is 4.7 units per acre, so not a large change in that.
So the total on that for an R1 is 135 houses?
I'm not that great at math,
Well,
but I trust you.
What was the acreage, 34?
33.89.
It's they're a little more than what an R1 would be.
Yeah, but
By 16.
10, 15 more
Yes.
units?
Yeah, just about. Also, there were some talks about students. I used this metric the last time I was here, that one, multifamily typically doesn't lend itself to a lot of students. Multifamily that's age targeted will lend itself to even less. So the National Multifamily Housing Council from the 2021 American Community Survey, U.S. Census Bureau, says 14.2% of multifamily households have school-age children. The multifamily communities built between 2010 and 2019, so newer construction, that number goes down to 10.8 of these apartment households have school-age children. And I believe that metric for us would probably be even less, since again, we're talking about age targeting.
So, can we wrap it up? You want to just take it? 'Cause I'm going to bring it to the floor and we can discuss it further then.
Sure. I think I have everyone's concerns.
All right, so, and I appreciate you doing that in the speed you did in it. Mr. President, I'm going to close this hearing and then we can discuss it further We wouldn't have public participation when we bring it back to the floor, but council then would have the time to ask their question. Thank you.
2 points of information. Number one, as Mr. Mackey mentioned, if this is approved tonight, that doesn't mean he has carte blanche approval to do whatever he wants. It still has to go back to Municipal Planning Commission for each step, each change that's taken place. So it has to go back there. Secondly, this was approved by the Municipal Planning Commission. As I understand it, in order for City Council to overrule that, it takes 6 votes.
This is in revised code section 71302.
So it would take 6 votes of City Council to overrule what the Municipal Planning Commission has already decided.
And by removing the emergency clause, it has how many days before it takes effect?
30.
30 days. Thank you.
Okay. We're now in recess until 6:30 p.m., 7:30 p.m. We'll begin the legislative portion of the meeting. I would mention for City Council that we are planning on having the swearing in on December 11th at 6:30. Are you available then, Mike? Okay, so we'll have the swearing in, and we have one council member that can't be here, but the judge will be here at 6:30 on December 11th for the swearing in for the new council members. Thank you. Now 7:30 PM. Going to call the legislative portion of the Mount Vernon City Council November 27th meeting to order. Mr. Hill, please call the roll.
Ms. Keener.
Here.
Mr. Hillier.
Here.
Mrs. Seabolt.
Here.
Mr. Severance.
Here.
Mr. Mahan.
Here.
Mrs. Woods.
Here.
Mr. Ruckman.
Here. We are in session. Tonight we have Reverend Matt Otto from Faith Baptist Church to give the invocation. Please rise for the invocation. Remain standing for the pledge. Thank you for being here, Pastor. Thank you.
Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, we thank you that you are the sovereign King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. You are the God who changes the seasons. You are the one who raises up kings and removes them. You are the one who gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have knowledge. And so, Lord, we thank you for the City Council today. We thank you for the part that they play, and you have asked us in your word to pray for those who are in authority over us. So, Lord, we want to do that tonight. Heavenly Father, we pray that you would give them wisdom and insight tonight as they make decisions that are important and significant. We pray that you would give them wisdom even beyond what they might be able to have on their own. Lord, give them divine insight and wisdom. Lord, I also pray, Lord, that you might give them empathy and compassion. Lord, as they care for their neighbors and the businesses and the institutions that are part of this community, we thank you for the opportunity that we have to be able to live in this particular country, in this particular state, and in this particular county and city. And so, Heavenly Father, I just pray, Lord, that the decisions that are made tonight might benefit this community, might allow it to grow, and Lord, honor you in all that happens here in this particular place. Lord, finally, we pray your blessing upon this council. Lord, I pray that these men and women might be able to work together well. Lord, that the decisions might be one that allows them to be able to galvanize their work and do so in a way, again, that makes a difference, Lord, for the kingdom and for our community. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council, in your packets were the minutes from the November 13th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? Not, I'd ask for a motion for approval.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and second, they be approved. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. They are approved. Mr. Hill, please give us our petitions or communications.
Yes, we have two letters regarding two pieces of legislation that are on the agenda for this evening. Regarding the zoning proposal for Upper Gilcrest Road, we received an email at 3:27 p.m. today from Robert Beck. It is addressed to members of City Council. The City of Mount Vernon needs single-family homes and the benefits that homeowners bring, not 156 more apartments. The 34 acres in question could provide 60 to 75 new homes and the property taxes associated with them. There would be less added traffic on Coshocton Road with single-family homes. The sewer and water utilities would be less taxed. In some cases, less is better. What is proposed today may never materialize once the zoning is changed. Nothing can ensure all of the renters are of their targeted age group, or the proposed unit price point, or the number of units. Developers make their money on quantity, and the City of Mount Vernon's roads, utilities, and schools are getting overloaded. Please read this at tonight's meeting and make it part of the permanent record, which we have done. Regards, Robert and Linda Beck. The second communication is from Scott Pompey, President and General Manager of Knox County Media Group, Inc., and this is regarding the public notice ordinance that is on the agenda for this evening. This also was addressed to Mount Vernon City Council. It is dated November 24. During the November 13th Mount Vernon City Council meeting, Mike Hillier inaccurately represented readership metrics on the Mount Vernon News, which we'd like to correct and address. The print edition of the news currently has 1,100 paid weekly subscribers and sells another 300 single copies each week. It also gives an additional 200 to 300 newspapers away each week.
Digitally, the news has more than 11,000 opt-in subscribers to its weekly email newsletter. That is half the 22,000 households of Knox County receive it. MountVernonNews.com averages more than 50,000 page views each month. More than 1,000 of Mount Vernon's residents are actively reading stories on our website every single day. And unlike nearly every other existing news organization in Central Ohio, including Mansfield, Ashland, Marion, Worcester, and Columbus, the Mount Vernon News is free online. We don't require readers to pay to read our stories. That's because, unlike Gannett, which owns those titles, we made a business decision that growing readership is critical to sustain the news for the long term, so it lasts 100 more years. We've been investing heavily in the news, producing more local news and launching more local news titles, trying to increase readership and improve marketing opportunities for our advertisers to help them build their businesses, attract more customers, and grow. Our mission, remaking the news with a sustainable community media business model. To that end, in October, we launched a county-wide free newspaper, the Knox County News, that serves to complement the Mount Vernon News. It is mailed twice monthly to 6,000 households. It is the precursor to more investment and expansion in 2024 in prep sports, community news, and local government coverage. With regard to the City of Mount Vernon's public notices, it's true that pulling those advertisements from the news does hurt our business. We'll adjust and we'll find a way to make up for the loss. Because it is in the public's interest to know how city leaders spend the $60 million in taxpayer dollars entrusted to them each year, we'll still publish those notices online and write stories about them, but at the company's expense. We believe a strong community newspaper makes a community stronger. Sincerely, Scott Pompey, President and General Manager, Knox County Media Group, Inc., and that is all of our correspondence for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Council, in your packets were the committee reports. You had 5 of them from our last meeting for your review. I see no liquor control licenses. We do have a proclamation for Phyllis Williams. I'd ask former Mayor Mavis to come up and present that proclamation.
Seems like I shouldn't have to use this, but I didn't want to stumble and do all that sort of thing. Thank you, Council, Mayor.
As long as you stumble gracefully, it would be fine.
I hadn't thought of it quite like that, but.
Okay.
It is good to be here for this particular reason this evening. It's a little different than what you've heard given to you tonight as far as problems that, I shouldn't say problems, issues that you have before you. Jim Gibson, who's with the Knox County Historical Society, was helpful in giving some information about the Russell Cooper house. Most of you know where it is. It's 115 East Gambier Street. And most of you probably have heard the name Russell Cooper. And frankly, I've been in the house several times over the years, but never quite sure who Russell was or who Cooper was. So I have some information tonight before we bring Mona up for the presentation. It said this house was built in 1829 by Alexander Elliott. Now that seems honest enough, but he was the postmaster. So I'm guessing they must have paid postmasters better back in those days. Medical Dr. John Russell ran his surgical practice and medical practice in that house from 1854 until he died in 1887. In 1852, he hired Dr. Jane Payne. You remember she has some famous notes in her history here, and that she was female. Not too many female doctors were employed then. He did employ her. She has a historical marker down at the Dog Fountain Plaza. After Dr. Russell passed away, and Dr. Russell had a daughter who in the meantime married a gentleman by the name of William Cooper. Mr. Cooper was born here in 1832 in Mount Vernon. He was an attorney, he was a U.S. congressman, and he was the Ohio Adjutant General, and during the Civil War he served as colonel in the Civil War. He served on the local school board, and I found out that he served one term, a 2-year term, as mayor of the city of Mount Vernon. He, in this research, Jim was telling me that the 3 terms he served on in the U.S. Congress, and most of us remember the 2000 election between Bush and Gore and the hanging chads. Well, the descendant of Mr. Cooper was Mary Dvorak, who has passed away a few years ago, but she was present here in the city, and she shared with Jim that the national media called her a number of occasions wanting to interview her because apparently when Mr. Cooper served as our congressman, he wrote rules on how to handle such happenings such as Chads. I'm sure they didn't have Chads then, but apparently had developed a set of rules which I understand were used in solving that. As most of you remember that it was a close election in Florida and they were using the punch card. So it's kind of an interesting history of Mr. Cooper and how he would have known that someday down the road there would have been issues involved in that. Finally, Mona Nacy has purchased that house, and we want to talk about that. First of all, let me introduce people, and I wrote names so I wouldn't forget it. Carol Ryan is chair of the foundation. She's back there. Carol, wave at us. Phyllis Williams is back there, and I know she's been to council before. Tom Fish is here this evening, and I think that's all of us that are here. But tonight, I'm going to ask Mona Nacy to come forward. Mona purchased this house in 2019. She then did this magnificent renovation, and the foundation is pleased to be able to present this plaque to you. It is a picture indicating the house at 115 East Gambier Street. On behalf of all of us, thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe we could get her to talk.
It was a labor of love, a beautiful house, and I'm happy that I put it back the way it should be. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your work. I was in that house when Sarah Brown owned that, and that was Mary Dvorak's, I think was her daughter, and a lot of history in that house, and a lot of changes in that house. Tim Tyler came and made a lot of changes to it. It's been a lot of changes through the years, but just so you know, in St. Paul's Episcopal Church, in our parish house, and the chapel are the original lights from that house. The lights that were there when it was built, and Sarah Brown donated that to the church. I'm sure Tim Tyler would like to have those back, but that they are in our chapel, and they're beautiful. They're beautiful lights in it. Thank you very much for what you've done for the heritage for Mount Vernon. I see no persons wanting to speak on matters of city concern. So we'll go into the legislative portion of the meeting. And council, you have that before you and in the packet. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, I'll assume that the agenda is approved by consensus. And we'll move to the resolutions. And I'd ask Mr. Hill to read these by title and number only this evening. The first resolution is Resolution 2023-87. Mr. Hill.
Resolution number 2023-87, a resolution authorizing the Safety Service Director to accept the donation of property from the Wesley L. Klein Trust and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Hillier.
Thank you, Mr. President. Council, I move to amend Resolution 2023-87 to strike out "and declaring an emergency" from the title.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that there be an amendment to this. Any discussion on the amendment? Mr. Hill.
Ms. Keener.
Yes.
Mr. Hillier.
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt.
Yes.
Mr. Severns.
No.
Mr. Mahan.
No.
Mrs. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
No.
By a vote of 4-3, the amendment is approved. Mr. Hillier.
I move for adoption of Resolution 2023-87 as amended, please.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for the adoption of this resolution as amended. Mr. Hillier.
Thank you. Council, we talked about this a little bit earlier. This is the two parcels on Prospect Street that the Klein Trust would like to give to the city of Mount Vernon. We heard from the Mayor and Safety Service Director what they thought their needs were. I have nothing further to say. Comments, questions?
Any comments on this resolution? Mr. Hill?
Ms. Keener,
Yes.
Mr. Hillier,
No.
Mrs. Seavel,
Yes.
Mr. Severns,
Yes.
Mr. Mahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Woods,
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
By a vote of 6-1, this resolution is adopted.
Thank you.
As amended. We move now to, we have no resolutions for second reading. We have several for first reading. The first one is Resolution 2023-97. Mr. Hill.
Resolution number 2023-97, a resolution approving the appointment of Russ Menser to the Board of Property Maintenance Appeals for a 3-year term and declaring an emergency.
Mrs. Woods.
Thank you. I move to suspend the rules requiring 3 separate readings and take Resolution 2023-97 to its third and final reading.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for the suspension of the rules. Any discussion on the suspension? Mr. Hill.
Ms. Keener,
Yes.
Mr. Hillier,
Yes.
Mrs. Seavel,
Yes.
Mr. Severns.
Yes.
Mr. Mahan.
Yes.
Mrs. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
The rule is suspended. Mrs. Woods.
Move to adopt Resolution 2023-97.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for the adoption of this resolution. Any discussion? Mrs. Woods.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Councilwoman Woods and council. If you don't know who Russ Menser is, boy, you've been hiding under a rock for many, many years. Russ is, well, first of all, he was honored as one of our volunteers of the year, not only for all of the things that he does to support many of the nonprofit members of the community and organizations and so forth, but because he likes to go up and he'll go up and clean up and organize parts of the city under his own volition. He's got an interest in property enforcement maintenance, and so I spoke with him, and we think he's going to be a very good fit. Mr. Bites, having said that, he's excited to do that, but I also want to thank Mr. Jim Gaston for serving for many years on the Property Enforcement Maintenance Board of Appeals, and so we're really excited about this fit, and Russ is excited to get started.
And he'll tell you what he's thinking.
Yes, he will.
Any other discussion? Yes.
Question. Since I didn't have time to look into this since we just got it. Knowles Drive, is that in Mount Vernon in the city?
It's back by it's the condos behind Remax.
Thank you. Okay. I'm with
Yeah.
you now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Mr. Hill.
Ms. Keener,
Yes.
Mr. Hillier,
Yes.
Mrs. Seavel,
Yes.
Mr. Severns.
Yes.
Mr. Mahan.
Yes.
Mrs. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
The resolution is adopted. Next resolution is resolution number 2023-98. Mr. Hill.
Resolution number 2023-98, a resolution confirming the mayor's appointment of Samantha Ramsier to the Civil Service Commission, fulfilling Myra Wilson's unexpired 6-year term and declaring an emergency.
Mrs. Woods.
Thank you. I move to suspend the rules requiring 3 separate readings and take Resolution 2023-98 to its third and final reading.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for the suspension of the rules. Any discussion on the suspension? Mr. Hill.
Ms. Keener,
Yes.
Mr. Hillier,
Yes.
Mrs. Seavel,
Yes.
Mr. Severns.
Yes.
Mr. Mahan.
Yes.
Mrs. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
The rule is suspended. Mrs. Woods.
Move to adopt Resolution 2023-98.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for the adoption of this resolution. Any discussion? Mrs. Woods.
Once again, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mrs. Woods and council. Samantha Ramsier is a lifelong resident of Mount Vernon, graduated from the Nazarene University, owns 4 different tax offices. So she's well ensconced in the community. She really wants to get involved in the public service aspect. She and her husband actually ended up buying the old substation on Newark Road, fire station that's out there, and renovated that and so forth. So, she's very well invested and wants to give back to the community and is very excited for this opportunity.
Any other discussion?
I also want to thank Myra Wilson for her service to that. I apologize for omitting that.
Mr. Hill.
Ms. Keener,
Yes.
Mr. Hillier,
Yes.
Mrs. Seavel,
Yes.
Mr. Severns.
Yes.
Mr. Mahan.
Yes.
Mrs. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
Resolution is adopted. Next resolution is resolution number 2023-99. Mr. Hill.
Resolution number 2023-99, a resolution authorizing and directing the auditor of the City of Mount Vernon to make supplemental appropriations.
Mrs. Seabolt.
Thank you. I would like to suspend the rules requiring 3 separate readings and take resolution number 2023-99 to its third and final reading.
Second?
Been moved and seconded for suspension of the rules. Any discussion on the suspension? Mr. Hill.
Ms. Keener.
Yes.
Mr. Hillier.
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt.
Yes.
Mr. Severns.
Yes.
Mr. Mahan.
Yes.
Mrs. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
The rules suspended. Mrs. Seabolt.
Thank you. I would like to adopt resolution number 2023-99.
Second?
Moved and seconded for the adoption of this resolution. Any discussion? Mrs. Seabolt.
Thank you. Mr. Scott, looks like we're going to get some uniforms.
We are. Thank you, Mrs. Seavolt and Council. This is, of course, supplemental appropriations, new resources coming into the Treasury, not known before the beginning of the year. So items 1 and 2 is a combined for $3,000. The department, and this is the distribution and collection department, has sold some equipment, quite a bit of equipment, and they have some resources to work with from those sales. Not all of that, I can tell you. They took in about $20,000 of resources, but they're only needing the need for $1,500 for water and $1,500 on wastewater for uniforms and related things for the employees. Item 3 comes to us by the way of Ohio Emergency Management Authority. This grant was for our first responders and the police and fire departments. It came by way of the EMA, and we appreciate that. This stipend was a grant that was applied for through our local EMA agency. And so with that, $260,000 has been or will be distributed amongst the workforce between the police department and our fire department. There was a very regiment process about how to obtain this grant. And so for those who did not meet the criteria of being retained at a certain point of time, was not eligible, and those who were beyond the period, which would be like the newest of hires, would not be eligible as either. So we have a small window of opportunities for these individuals, and we would certainly like to make sure that we get these resources distributed. We have a 30-day window before we need to get these resources out to the beneficiaries. So we still have time. Now, that's not as an issue of time, but we certainly want to appreciate the efforts that our local EMA office did for our first responders. It's all in regards to ARPA funds as well, but there's where you're coming from. And number 4, again, we have the fire department then sold off some scrap metals. They'd like to put those resources back into play as well. Thank you, Mrs. Seavolt.
Thank you.
Any other discussions or questions? Mr. Hill.
Ms. Keener.
Yes.
Mr. Hillier.
Yes.
Mrs. Seavolt.
Yes.
Mr. Severns.
Yes.
Mr. Mahan.
Yes.
Mrs. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
The resolution is adopted. The final resolution for this evening is Resolution 2023-100. Mr. Hill.
Resolution number 2023-100, a resolution authorizing and directing the auditor of the City of Mount Vernon to transfer certain funds.
Mrs. Seabolt.
Thank you. I would like to suspend the rules requiring 3 separate readings and take resolution number 2023-100 to its third and final reading.
Second?
Been moved and seconded for the suspension of the rules. Any discussion on the suspension? Mr. Hill.
Ms. Keener.
Yes.
Mr. Hillier.
Yes.
Mrs. Seavolt.
Yes.
Mr. Severns.
Yes.
Mr. Mahan.
Yes.
Mrs. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
The rule is suspended. Mrs. Seabolt.
Thank you. I would like to adopt resolution number 2023-100.
Second?
Been moved and seconded for the adoption of this resolution. Any discussion? Mrs. Seabolt.
Well, Mr. Scott, looks like we're going to transfer $145,500.
That's in one of the line accounts, yes, but we have three on the agenda. Council appreciates your support on this. Number one, employee insurance into Medicare for the general fund, that's 10,500. That will reallocate what we need for the rest of the year. Item two, by plant services received, this is at the water treatment plant. They're rearranging dollars for plant chemicals. The chief operator has sent a notice indicating that he believes to think we could run a bit short on chemicals of the water treatment plant, and I'm sure we would not like that to happen. Item three then is what Mrs. Seavolt has, $125,000 transferring from police pension over to employee insurance on behalf of our police department's division. Thank you, Mrs. Seavolt. Council.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Mr. Hill?
Ms. Keener,
Yes.
Mr. Hillier,
Yes.
Mrs. Seavolt,
Yes.
Mr. Severns,
Yes.
Mr. Mahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Woods,
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
The resolution is adopted. That concludes the resolutions. We move now to ordinances. We have three ordinances for third reading. The first one is ordinance number 2023-40. Mr. Hill.
Ordinance number 2023-40, an ordinance to amend certain provisions of the codified ordinances regarding public notices and declaring an emergency.
And we had a correspondence on that today. That's before City Council. I have this thing, but I can't introduce an amendment or a motion. So anybody want to move to on this ordinance?
I'll take that, Mr. President. I move to amend ordinance 2023-40, please.
Second.
The amendment?
I'm sorry, to strike out and declare an emergency. You threw me off a little bit there at the start.
Oh, sorry.
And the title. Thank you.
Okay. There's an amendment to strike
And declaring an emergency in the title.
the emergency clause. So this won't take effect until after 30 days if that is amendment's approved.
Mr. President, if I could explain why.
Okay?
Council, we've heard from different people about adding the emergency clause to everything we do. I also talked to, I believe it was the mayor of Belleville. Her comment was, why do you do everything in an emergency clause? And I've asked that the emergency clause be removed from legislation that did not have to be passed in an emergency. This does give the public 30 days to look at this and decide if they would like to ask questions or act on it. When it's signed, it takes effect immediately with the emergency clause. Just gives us a little bit more transparency. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the amendment?
Yes, sir. I apologize, I didn't step in and explain myself when I voted no on the earlier amendment. And I agree and I respect, and I've read the communication as well, and I understand that not everything needs to be passed as an emergency. But I think that that time for that is prior to the ordinance, and I understand that some of these may have been asked for, but we're not originally done that way. But we're here for ordinance for third reading for several important items, and they've been made public. And I think that at some point, government has to be clear in their processes and predictable in their processes. And I think changing and amending that it changes the implementation on the third reading is not predictable and is not necessarily good business. So that's why I voted against the amendment earlier. And with respect to everybody involved, I'll be voting no again.
I respect it, sir. If I understand you right, so do I understand, do you think the emergency clause could be removed from the future? The reason you're against it is because it waited till the third reading, is that?
Yeah, for certain things where it's not necessarily an emergency, or it's not necessarily, there are various reasons in the emergency clause, including the business of the city and development of the city, that I don't have a problem with the emergency clause not always being invoked. But I don't think that doing that on third readings is predictable or good business.
Mr. President, I can't amend that till the third reading, or till the reading takes it to the floor, correct?
No, that's not
Or
correct.
you can amend it at any time.
Yes.
So I could have amended it without asking for passage?
Yeah.
No, my mistake. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the amendment?
Yeah, I would speak against it as well a little bit. I think if we take something to 3 readings, the public has at least 28 to 30 days to comment in that time. So we do a first reading, 2 weeks later we meet again, and 2 weeks later we meet again. So they do have 28 days, roughly, already to comment. So I'm just kind of on the fence here.
Any other discussion? Mr. Hill?
Ms. Keener,
No.
Mr. Hillier,
Yes,
Mrs. Seaval,
Yes.
Mr. Severns,
No.
Mr. Mahan,
No.
Mrs. Woods.
I am so confused right now. So we're voting to no would be it that stays in.
Yes. Correct. No means we leave declaring an emergency on this
Piece of
piece,
legislation.
resolution, ordinance, excuse me.
No.
Mr. Ruckman,
No.
By a vote of 5 to 2, the amendment is defeated. Mr. Hillier?
I move to adopt ordinance 2023-40.
Second.
Been
Thank
moved-
you.
Been moved and seconded for the adoption of this ordinance. Any discussion?
Thank you. Council, we've talked about this quite a bit. We heard the letter was read from the Mount Vernon News, Mr. Pompey. I did want to make sure everybody understood. He had mentioned the Knox County News was sent out through the Mount Vernon paper. I do want to verify it's not the one we've been getting, like delivered to my house, which is the Knox Weekly News. This is, if you remember Fred Main, who was with the Mount Vernon News, he's the editor of this one. So I was questioning that today, and I didn't realize I actually called Josh and said, "Can you help me out here a little bit? What's the difference?" So this is not what he was referring to, just so you know. I do appreciate the Mount Vernon News putting my picture. I wish I was running for re-election. I've been in the paper so much here lately. I would ask this, and it's $6,000, $5,000, and I understand, and Knox Page has pointed out pretty good, it's not much money in the big picture. But it's $5,000 of taxpayer dollars. Okay? I don't think it's good money being spent in the Mount Vernon News. But I do think, and you're the ones that look at budgets come January, I do think that we need to look at and make sure that we can put this out in print any way we can, such as the Knox Weekly News, who has about 3 pages of classifieds, and comes once a week, whatever. Knox Pages, we had conversation with them as another way we could possibly advertise. I would like to see the city set up their website as fast as they can so I can refer somebody and say, go look at it. Right now you go to news and podcast and it's not there. So that's my 2 cents.
Mr. Hillier, may I comment?
Yes.
So currently, I was saving this for my comments at the end, but we have been in communication with Civic Plus. That is a company that has a whole suite of products, one of which is a website redesign. Part of that redesign will take place next year, and a part of that is a newsroom feature where all of our public notices will be published.
So, by passing this tonight, if we have a public notice, how fast do we have to have our website ready to go?
Well, it has to go on our social media feeds, and we'll do that so that will cover us for what we're required to do. The current legislation moves us in compliance with some of the new provisions of the law. It does not prevent us from getting out information through either the Mount Vernon News, Knox Pages, Knox Weekly News, or some other print publication. Additionally, if we choose to do that, we would not be then required to go and to do it in a certain way, which is right now when we have to publish in the Mount Vernon News, we have to publish in a very specific way. we'll be able to take care of that by using our own social media feeds, and we'll be able to potentially change the information we send out through Knox pages or some other media that might be more readily digestible by the public rather than the strict legal confines that we're currently limited to.
So it doesn't prevent us from putting it other places, it's just our official notification site is our social media. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Any other questions? Mr. Hill?
Ms. Keener.
I do not like that we are not required to put it anywhere in writing. And I feel like if it is not written somewhere, we won't do it and at some point. And so I have to vote no on this.
Mr. Hillier.
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt.
No.
Mr. Severns.
Yes.
Mr. Mahan.
Yes.
Mrs. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
By a vote of 5-2, this ordinance is adopted. Next ordinance is ordinance number 2023-41. Mr. Hill.
Ordinance number 2023-41, authorizing an amendment to ordinance 1999-07 to extend the term of the tax increment financing program for the Coshocton Avenue TIF for an additional 30 years pursuant to Ohio Revised Code sections 5709.40B and 5709.51, authorizing other related actions pursuant to Ohio Revised Code sections 5709.40B, 5709.42, 5709.43, and related laws, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Hillier.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt ordinance 2023-41, please.
Second.
Been moved and second for the adoption of this ordinance. Any discussion? Mr. Hillier.
Thank you. Council, being what this is, I determined not to amend it. I've heard everything I need to hear on this from all involved. Questions, comments? Thank you.
Mr. Hill.
Ms. Keener.
Yes.
Mr. Hillier.
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt.
Yes.
Mr. Severns.
Yes.
Mr. Mahan.
Yes.
Mrs. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. Next ordinance is ordinance number 2023-42. Mr. Hill.
Ordinance number 2023-42, an ordinance amending the zoning classification of parcel number 71-00050.000, also known as 0 Upper Gilcrest Road, from the present zoning of R1 Single Family District to PND Planned Neighborhood District, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Hillier.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to amend ordinance 2023-43 to strike out and declare it an emergency, please.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for this amendment. Any discussion on the amendment?
Like I said earlier, if I knew I could do it earlier, I would have. I'll take that as a mistake, but I do think this is one that the public, if they want, should have 30 days after it's passed. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Mr. Hill.
Ms. Keener.
No.
Mr. Hillier.
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt.
No.
Mr. Severns.
No.
Mr. Mahan.
No.
Mrs. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
No.
By a vote of 5-2, the amendment is defeated. Go back to Mr. Hillier.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt ordinance 2023-43, please.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for the adoption of this ordinance. Any discussion? Mr. Hillier.
Thank you, Mr. President. Council, this is the rezoning of the Upper Gilcrest property. We had the public hearing earlier. I've had my questions answered. Before you ask, if we have questions, I'll have Mr. Mackey come back up. Do you have questions you'd like to address? Mr. Mackey, if you could. I do thank you for coming, and please be safe going home.
Absolutely. Good evening again.
So here's my question. So one of the questions that was asked earlier, you said, well, you didn't really have plans because you didn't have the development that far along, waiting on the zoning change. Does that mean if this weren't to pass that you would develop an R1 plan for the property?
No, I mean, our plan is with something that we've already proposed, the concept 55 plus age targeted community on that site. You know, if we are not fortunate enough to receive the necessary zoning amendment, we'd either go back and talk to the seller about extending the contract and try this again, or that may be it for us for any type of development on this site.
Okay, I just want clarification. Thank you.
What was the rent cost? Because we had someone provide a number earlier, but I wanted to hear a number from you.
So what we have proposed right now is $1.75 per square foot. Now, of course, that can change based off, when we do our pro forma to see how much, once we put it out to bid and all that kind of stuff, like how much it's actually gonna cost to build this and what is affordable for us at that time. So if you're looking at, so that could range anywhere from $1,200 a month to $2,300 per month at the high end.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sir, could you clarify for us, we've had two people mention, well, renters don't pay property taxes, but that's not our understanding. But could you clarify how much property tax is going to come from this development as perhaps opposed to an R1 development?
I really can't answer that with, I don't totally understand how that would work out at this point, to be honest with you. I think the one benefit about a development such as this is when we talked about there is an aging demographic here. It's shown that it's been aging for several years, and then in the years that are coming, it's going to continue to grow. What it will do is it will hopefully free up some housing stock. So people that are currently in single-family homes will relocate because they want amenity-free living and maybe a smaller size unit, and that will obviously bring in more single-family homes available on the market that people can purchase and move into and pay property taxes.
Let me ask Mr. Mahan's question in a different way. The company that you work for will pay property tax on all the development that you're building here, correct?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. So the individual people don't pay property taxes if they own an individual, but the company itself pays property taxes for everything that's built.
Yes.
Okay.
But as a clarification on that, Rob, to be honest with you, as a landlord that owns 2 properties, when I set the rent on that property, it's figured out in that what I'm paying for property tax as well. So they are.
Yeah. So, but it's part of the whole calculation.
It's just not a line item in
Yeah.
there. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
But it's
appreciate
not like
that.
that there's no property tax generated from this site.
Yeah, I think we just need to get that out on the public record, that these people they're renters, but they're going to pay property taxes through their rent. And so property taxes will be paid.
The difference, if I could, yes, they do, but yet they don't have a real ownership towards the property because they just run it.
Understood.
Anybody else? I have a couple. Go ahead.
I appreciate the public coming to speak about this. I'm skeptical at the minute, but I do want to reiterate that we have heard a lot about the TIF money being there already to get Upper Gilcrest fixed, widened, improved, whatever. We really have got to get that done. The one gentleman talked about communities that build the roads and everything and have it all planned out before they actually develop it. I think that is a smart way to do that, and it's not your fault. I'm just saying we have got to get that road improved, like, soon. Yes, we're in planning, I hear that, but we got to get it done because there's a lot of building going out there now and we don't have a good road out there. So it should be done or should have been done, and I'm just going to make that point.
And I have here traffic as part of my comments. And the conversation I had with Mr. Ball, I have not seen it in a drawing. He did mention it would go as far as sleigh ball. So how that exactly is depends on where they draw the line. So I haven't seen that actual drawing of the widening. That's just what I was told. You can widen Upper Gilcrest Road as much as you want. You can make it so you can have 4 lanes on Upper Gilcrest Road. You got to worry about when they hit 36. You got to worry about when they're going to the south side of town. We did Shocken Avenue twice in one section because we didn't do it right the first time. We still couldn't handle the traffic. When they hit Upper Gilcrest Road and they want to go to IGA, they're not going to the public square, people. They're going to go to the same people's driveways on New Gambia Road that call you about the traffic, and those calls are going to get more. I told you the very first meeting, you're a good company, but the plan for traffic in this town does not support what you want to do. We had that discussion. And I know the traffic is not your, you want to build your apartments, the traffic updates is the city's problem. Yes, I would like to see in the next year, when Byron Ball comes to this counter, he says, this is the day we're going to start doing this. This is the day we're going to start drawing it. This is the day we're going to start doing it. That would get them to Coshocton Avenue. What you're going to do with it after that, I don't know. I am also questionable about the number of apartments we have as well. You've done your studies. You've seen how many people want to rent versus buy and all that. I question exactly that. What's going to happen if they have no ownership, for one? I think too many rentals is not a good thing. Ownership's better. I would ask this. You did mention your density was slightly larger than R1.
Correct.
And R1's 4 houses to an acre. Because this is just a drawing a concept, is there any way, and it doesn't, I know, have anything to do with how this is voted, to get that density down?
We'll evaluate it. Again, if we're fortunate enough to receive the zoning amendment, we go into our planning phase and we see what works, because there's also other considerations, such as our architect and civil engineers working with Mr. Ball to understand, what can fit on the property, how it actually exactly lays out. I don't know if we go less than that. Again,
I have your word to look into it.
Yeah, there you go.
And also for Mr. McAvoy.
Yep. Oh, you're talking about the buffer?
Yes.
Yes.
I lost the word. I have nothing else. Anybody else?
I'm sorry.
Comments?
I'm sorry. If I can.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. If I could dispute one thing about, we hear a lot of times about renters don't have a sense of ownership. In my experience, both professionally and personally, I find that to be not accurate. I was a renter when I first became a professional. It's what I could afford. I didn't have credit built up yet to do the things I wanted to do, and I took a lot of pride in being that's the home that my wife and I, started out in, and we were able to get to a point where we became owners. But we took a lot of pride in being in a place that we live, a place that we come home to rest. It's at $1.75 per square foot. We're not talking about subsidized housing or some type of cheap experience. And so personally, I dispute that. I have been a renter. I have the same sense of pride in my rental property that I did in the house that I live in now. We do see this, again, since 1997, we've been building senior living communities, 23 throughout the state, over 2,300 units. Those are all rental units. In Mount Vernon itself, we have the Danbury Senior Living that has 81 assisted living units. Those are rental units. But on top of that, on that property, there's 7 independent living villas, which are all rental. If you drive around that area, I think you'll see that those people have a lot of pride in what they call home, and the upkeep that they have around it. So, I believe that with the price point that we're looking at and the demographic that we're targeting here, these are going to be people that will take great pride in the place that they call home.
Mr. Hillier, are we able to ask Mr. Gotke to answer a question at this point?
Wake up, Jeff.
You have to give him a time limit. How many minutes you think you need?
It's going to be fairly easy. Mr. Gotke.
And then double it.
Your latest understanding of data, is there a need for this housing that's targeted at 55 years old in Mount Vernon, Ohio?
Yes.
Why?
I think the population growth numbers that both Mr. Mackey and I shared, his were 10 years back and mine were 7, demonstrates that just the glut of baby boomers aging, and if you look at the type of house that they want to live in and that they need to live in based on health conditions, what they're bringing fits those needs.
Okay.
You don't think we're getting more apartments than we need and not enough R1s?
We're not the ministers of housing here. We can't determine how many units is enough units, right? The market does that, right? So at ADF, our best job is to present data and consulting to them and to you all so that they can make the decisions about if their product will work here in this market. Your job is to see if what they want to do here fits in with the vision that the city has created for itself through zoning or comp planning, something like that. I think we get ourselves down a pretty bad road if we start thinking about we can only have this many units in this town because we don't think that there should be any more. That's up to the market to determine that. What we've seen over the last 10 years or so is that we haven't built a new apartment complex in this town since 2004. So the hose has been kinked up for so long that now we've unkinked it, and it seems like a lot quickly, and I don't dispute that it is, but I think it's up to the market to answer that question about when is enough enough.
One other thing. So I don't know remember the numbers in front of me, but Liberty Crossing, are they not going to, they're going to have around 400 single dwelling units or not?
Not quite.
400?
Well,
No.
it depends
I know
on
it's
what
a
you're
mix.
counting as a single dwelling
Patio
unit.
homes.
Yeah,
and
so,
then
and townhouses and single family homes. I believe the apartment building style is about half or a little less than half of the total units.
Yeah.
200, thank you. And the rest is all going to be single family type.
Okay. And just one other reminder then, Rockford development, I mean, those are not going to be put up, there aren't going to be 496 units next year.
Yep.
They're going to develop those over 4 to 5 years. And
And
that's
they have
if
a
they
development
rent
plan.
it.
They're not gonna put theirs all up at once either.
Correct. And I don't know what the plan is. What is your plan? How quickly would these?
So, I mean, we're looking at a minimum of 2 phases right now. Again, we have to determine what those phases will look like. as far as
Possibly
units.
over how many years?
Probably 2 to 3.
Okay.
And
I mean, we have time to deal with some traffic issues, and we do need to deal with those.
And to Janice's point, what you hear the Rockford folks saying was, if there's no market for more of our apartments, we'll stop building. And you won't get to phase 4, 5, 6, or whatever they had. Like, they'll just stop when they can't rent them anymore, right? They got to carry those costs, and that's expensive. So they're going to build what they can fill, right? And then just real quick to end, I think if you talk to a lot of our employers around here, the dearth of employees, like housing is now an economic problem where employers can't find employees because employees can't find housing. And so they'll live half an hour away, work here for a year or two, but then realize they can get as good or a better job near their house and save an hour in the car, and they'll just do that. And so that's a critical issue as
But
well.
Jeff, is it not true, though, that house that they won't live is where their family lives, and their family won't fit in a 2-bedroom apartment? Which is, I mean, there's a shortage of houses, family homes here, too.
No question.
Okay.
Yep, I agree with
Mr.
that.
President, call the question.
It's called the question. It takes a 2/3 vote to stop debate. Is there a second to calling the question?
Second.
And second, those in favor of the question, call the roll, please.
Ms. Keener,
Yes.
Mr. Hillier,
Yes.
Mrs. Seaval,
Yes.
Mr. Severns.
Yes.
Mr. Mahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
Okay, the question is called and it is approved, so we now go back to voting on the ordinance without debate. So, Mr. Hill.
Ms. Keener,
Yes.
Mr. Hillier,
No.
Mrs. Seaval,
That's you.
Don't tell me. No.
Mr. Severns.
Yes.
Mr. Mahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Woods.
No.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes.
By a vote of 4 to 3, the ordinance is adopted. And of course, this ordinance would have taken 6 votes to officially turn it down. So the ordinance is approved.
Thank you again. And to all you people.
We now move to ordinance number 2023-41. Mr. Hill.
Ordinance number 2023-43. An ordinance accepting the annexation of
43, I'm sorry.
Ordinance number 2023-43, an ordinance accepting the annexation of 4.325 acres, parcel numbers 12-50046.000 and 12-50054.000 from Clinton Township into the city of Mount Vernon and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Hillier.
Thank you, Mr. Braun. I understand I can take this to another meeting, correct?
It's a second, it can go to a third, yes.
I'd like to give this a second reading tonight. Thank you.
This ordinance receives a second reading. The final ordinance this evening is ordinance number 2023-44. Mr. Hill.
Ordinance number 2023-44, an ordinance amending section 187.02A of chapter 187 of the codified ordinances of the city of Mount Vernon, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Mrs. Sable.
I'm giving this a second reading.
This ordinance receives a second reading. That concludes the legislative portion of the meeting. We now move to our remarks from the administration. Mayor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. President and council. Council, I forwarded this link to your email. The solar eclipse is going to happen on April 8th, 2024. The reason I'm bringing it up now is because Knox EMA really wants to know if there are any activities planned for that day. I know one other community is planning to do that, but part of this was one of the things also that was talked about at the Ohio Municipal League Conference. Previous eclipse events ended in traffic jams and road rage and everything else that you might not want to see human beings behaving. So, one of the things that is being proposed is if there are any organizations who wish to provide an event which would more slowly reintroduce traffic into the highways and so forth. The state is urging us to kind of do that, but not that city government are event planners, but you all are connected to constituency groups who do event planning and so forth. And so it's just something that if you do hear about it, if EMA is going to be involved, and they would really like to be involved, they're doing all of the coordinating of that. They need to know by the end of the year so they can plan to staff it and so forth like that. So please, if you go back to your commissions and boards or your neighbors, whatever, that's fine. JT Deschamps is the director, so please reach out to him and let them know. There will be people who will be stopped on the highways. And Mount Vernon will experience a total blackout. This is a site that is free. You can do that. There are all sorts of things. But anyway, April 8th, we're going to have a total blackout for about 4 minutes or so. Anyway, I did talk with the schools. I talked with Mr. Cedar. They will not be going to school that day. They will be doing remote learning that day because the total blackout will be right smack dab in the middle of bus drop-off. So it's not going to be a good situation for anybody out there. So anyway, just so you know, please keep your touch base with those groups that you come into contact with. So I don't think the school is planning to do anything other than just remote learning. So there is another thing that I will be bringing. I did want to just put this out. America 250, the 250th, the semi-quincentennial birthday of the United States of America is coming up in 2026. There is interest in the Convention and Visitors Bureau of Knox County has expressed an interest in wanting to do something with that. There are some procedures that are involved through the state, which involves a resolution. Well, also, it involves identifying people who would take lead roles in this. There are grant monies available, limited, and the longer we wait, it is the less likely we would be receiving any of those smaller grants, even the smaller grants. So, anyhow, this is I'm not sure if I forwarded this link to you. If not, I'll make sure that I do or Todd does so that you can kind of see what's going on. I've also approached the county commissioners because I think it's going to be led through the 88 counties, but the push is to have 250 communities take part in the America 250 celebration. Anyway, last thing I would like to mention is that I would like to congratulate East Elementary School for their, excuse me, let me get out of that. I would like to congratulate East Elementary School for their National Blue Ribbon Award that they were recently that they earned, and this was based on exemplary performance. Only 19 schools in the state received that. So that is saying something. There is an event planned for this Friday at East in the morning, and I just want to congratulate the Mount Vernon City School District, and especially the students, faculty, and staff, and administration at East School. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Sayers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Hillier and Mrs. Woods, to answer your questions. The Grange Avenue Waterline Project. We've got a local contractor. There is a water line going in the right-of-way, a wastewater line going in the center of Grange Avenue. There's some stormwater work on a portion of Grange and Fern. We don't yet have a timeline on when that work will be completed, but the work has started. If folks have questions or issues that arise, they can reach out directly to the engineering department. I've communicated with the individual that you've directed my way. Yep. So that's the information specifically on Grange. I would like to take a second to talk about the tech upgrades that I've spoken with several of you about, and I still have a couple of you to talk this through. But as we move forward with making Mount Vernon live up to its tagline, innovative community, authentically hometown, part of that innovation includes a records management system, which will initially be for internal use. And then after we get a lot of that data online, we'd like to make that external for public use. And that will assist Terry Scott here with the retention efforts as we desperately need. A mass communication software, which is an opt-in system. And in the instances of emergencies, we can pull in data from the yellow pages and white pages should we need it. Public records request workflow software, which Rob and I are working on. That will bring some transparency to the city. And then again, that website redesign, which will also have a 48-month built-in redesign plan. And it will include a newsroom feature that will be able to publish those public notices. And those will be posted there. So that's a pretty robust tech plan within the next year. I'd like to see implemented into the city, and with your help, we can get that done in this budget cycle. And while I'm not ready to say that we're ready to pull the trigger exactly on how to, there are means to make that, shall we say, debt neutral. So there you go.
Thank you. Mr. Scott.
Nothing further, Mr. President.
Mr. Bourne.
I have nothing, thank you.
Mr. Ruckman.
Yes, I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving, and also as we turn our focus forward, wanted to be sure to bring up that we have Food for the Hungry coming up, and that's something very important for our community and something we've been involved in for a number of years, and want to encourage everybody to do that. The drop-off day is going to be Friday, December the 8th, and if you want more information, please go to foodforthehungrycares.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Keener.
I would just like to thank everybody who came out to speak to council tonight, and that is all.
Mr. Mahan.
Thank you, sir. Downtown Mount Vernon looks beautiful. I'd like to thank the people involved in putting up the decorations. And yeah, been a long night, hadn't it? Putting up the decorations and making the businesses and the streets look good. It was just really nice as I was coming into town tonight for the meeting to see all that. Appreciate the work of municipal planning. We've had some talk about that group, and those are volunteers, correct, Mr. Mayor? Municipal planning and property management and Shade Tree. I mean, these are volunteers who are doing work for the city, and I want to acknowledge and appreciate their work. I appreciate what the mayor reads before the municipal planning meetings. He balances the private property rights with the needs of the city. I'm paraphrasing. I appreciate the public comments. A lot of questions were asked tonight that were good clarifying questions. And I appreciate, sir, you being here to respond and answer those questions. And that helps council have good information because the public comes up with questions that we don't always know to even ask. And so it's good to get those clarifying questions. Appreciate everyone's time tonight. That's all, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mrs. Woods.
Thank you, sir. I also want to, thank you to you that came to address council tonight. We're your voice, so I appreciate the input and feedback. I've had somebody ask me about the middle school renovation. Could we get an update on that? So I don't know what to
I will
tell them
certainly try.
anymore. I just don't know what to tell them. And then the scanning of the personnel files, can we get an update on where we are in that process? I know
Say that again.
the personnel files, we were using
Scanning.
interns to scan the files, just kind of get
I
an update
will,
where
I
we are
will
on
give
that.
you all an update.
Okay. So I'm not a big shopper. My husband does most of that. We're certainly not big shoppers together, but we got out Saturday in downtown, and it was awesome to see that many people out and about. It was just an amazing day.
Was it during the game?
We were like 10 minutes till the start of the game. That's all the
You don't
guys were
have to
talking
say. You
about.
don't have to say, Tam.
That's all they were talking about.
Don't respond to that.
What game? No.
Yeah, really.
And if you would just,
We should have all been downtown.
and if you would please let the guys know who did leaf pickup, that was an amazing job this year. Anytime they can make my husband that happy, give them a thumbs up.
Will do.
So, yep, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hillier.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sitting here, a couple of things. Somebody dropped the bottle. Mr. Mayor, municipal planning,
been a
you're the
long
chair of
meeting.
that, correct?
That is correct.
And do we have safety service director sit on that as well, or is it?
Yes.
So we have some and I appreciate the volunteers, but I just wanted to, so the public knew, we do have your vote to vote on municipal planning. And it only has to have, what, one vote from one of your volunteers, correct? It only takes three to
You
pass.
have to have, four
Is it four then four?
No, is it? It's
Three.
It's three.
Three is a quorum.
So, just to help you there a little bit about who's on municipal planning. I'm sitting here, and I remember in 2006, a vote I did on a piece of legislation, and I wish I never would have voted yes. But I'm still sitting here wondering when anybody ever amended anything before taking it to the floor. And I can't remember that. It doesn't really matter. I apologize. I would have did it a long time ago, because you know how long I've been talking about emergency clauses. But I don't recall it ever being done prior to somebody taking it to the floor. Anyhow, I think that's an important conversation to keep in front of you. I think it's very important that the public does have a chance to speak after council passes something. Not everybody, and especially in today's age, not everybody knows we're on the third reading. I mean, it's tough. And sometimes once you hear maybe somebody's taxes are going up, which they're not, the word gets around a little faster. And I think, especially, it's not just the few people we've heard from here. It's been more than one person said to me, why do you do everything on an emergency clause? And it's probably the cleaning crew. All right, enough said about that, but I think it's a conversation you got to have. You only have 2 more meetings you got to put up with me, by the way. Regional planning. The last meeting they talked about it's time to work on a comprehensive plan. And Cheryl, you're there, she correct me if I'm wrong, but county commissioners are putting up $200,000 for the county and townships to write the comprehensive plan. Is that correct, Cheryl? County commissioners are footing a bill on the rewriting of the comprehensive plan?
150 commissioners, 50 from RPC.
I knew you were paying attention. That was a test. All right. The city understands doing their own comprehensive plan, correct?
We have been asked, since the city is going to be playing a very significant role on the comprehensive plan, and so Jeff and I talked about having just a section for the city of Mount Vernon as well, and so in all fairness, it would be nice if we could kick in some money as well to pay for that particular portion to be ensconced into the comprehensive plan that will be in effect for the, like the next
So maybe you can get all that
7 or
check
8
of the
years.
200,000, or the chunk of the 200,000.
Some of it, not, yeah, we need to have a major presence in that.
So my point is, this is the time that townships address things like traffic, things like where they want their commercial growth, and a lot of things that the township wants to see for their future planning before it's revised, and then I think it's another 5 years. And I think it's an excellent time for the city to say, this is our plan for what we want to do with traffic. So when you sit here and have these conversations about where the next 400 apartments are going to be, you can look at what the city's traffic plan is and how they plan on paying, because part of that can also be in that comprehensive plan is how they plan on doing the funding to do that. So I think it's very important that we address that in the plan, and I thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Sabo.
Thank you. I feel like Jay. I thought it was so beautiful when I was coming to City Council tonight. And please relay to the people that put up the Christmas decorations and the square. It looks beautiful. It's really nice. That's all.
Mr. Severance.
Just want to thank the public for speaking up. It does matter, and we listen, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
On Mayor Starr's comment on the solar eclipse, I went to Nashville to see the last solar eclipse, and the traffic was horrendous on the interstate. And I decided to just sit down and eat for a long time before I left because traffic was just going nowhere. And so we need to be careful of that. It's going to be more direct up around Lake Erie than it is right here, but it's going to be a big event because it was then, it's going to be now. It doesn't happen all that often. And again, on the decorations, I decided to come up from South Main, where I used to come up Gay Street, come up, and looking at those trees, it looked like they were Christmas trees that were decorated up on the regular trees. How they decorated does as you're coming up. It's just go from South Main Street down by the viaduct, just come up Main Street. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's the best I've ever seen of our decorations, and kudos to those who put in all that work. Thank you for media for being here this evening. That being said, I call for adjournment.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and second. We adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed nay. We are adjourned.
I said I did.